Okay, so now it's time to start programming. Let's first create an array to store validation messages. So, missing variable which will convert into array. And it's going to be an empty array for the time being. Okay, we start with if is set post, and what will be the trigger? Let's use first name, because every time we're going to submit the form, this field will be submitted with it. So let's check if this form field has been posted. And if it was, we're going to obviously work with the values from the populated from a form. So for each loop, for each post, as key equals value. Okay, and now first we're going to make sure that our value, if it's array value, then we simply pass this array without changing anything. Otherwise, we will trim the value if it's just a normal string, to make sure that there aren't any spaces at the end of the string itself. Okay, so if empty value and array key exists, and now key required array, which we will create in just a second. And if this key, which means first name and last name, this will be all keys actually of this post. If this key exists inside of the required array, which we'll create, as I said, in just a second, then what we want to do is to add to our missing array with the key with the key from the post, and assign the value, which will be the message from the required array. And again, we need to pass the key to identify the relevant message. Now I know it sounds a little bit not very clear here, but let's create this required array, and I'm sure you're going to understand what we're doing here. So if we open our config.php, and right at the end, if we create our required array equals array, opening bracket, and after the closing bracket we put a semicolon, and now we are going to create the first key, which will be first name, give a bit of space, and the value will be please provide your first name. So this is the validation message. This is the key. This is validation message. So if we go back, as you can see, we're checking if the key exists. So for each post, as key equals value, key will be first name, and the value will be whatever the visitor will put into this text field. So obviously key and value. Now we check if array key exists. So first name key as key exists inside of the required, because we've just created this. So first name is here. And now obviously what we're doing, we're adding to our missing array with the same key, we're passing the value from the required array, which has the same key. So basically please provide your first name, which will be added to our missing array. Now if we go and now actually if we work on the second part of the statement, so we have if is set post gender, then what we want to do, if isn't set, because obviously radio buttons, they don't have to be selected, but we will make them actually we don't want them to be selected when the page first loads. So when we click on the next button, it won't submit anything. This will be simply ignored. So obviously this key gender won't be sent at all. So this is why we're checking if it hasn't been sent, which means none of the buttons has been selected. If it hasn't been set, then missing gender, we are just typing in the key directly, and then exactly same thing, required, this time rather than key as well, we're going to pass the gender as the attribute, as a parameter, sorry. So that's all fine. And now if empty missing, what that basically means is that if we haven't got any problems, all values have been submitted correctly, we have everything we want, then obviously missing array will be empty. So if it's empty, then we will do something. We will go to the next step, and we also create the session with all these relevant values submitted and assigned to the relevant sessions as well. But this is something we're going to be looking at in the next video, after we'll actually finish with our validation messages.